Okay, so this video is intended to be a walkthrough tutorial for your Unit 2 Lesson 10 project, which is styling a page with CSS. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by talking about what the project is, and then I'm going to go through all of the different parts of the project. If you are mostly done with the project and you just need help with the very last part, feel free to fast forward, feel free to rewind, watch portions as many times as needed in order for you to complete your project and get it turned in successfully. So for this project, you are showing me that you know how to design a page to meet a user or a client's needs, that you know how to add images to a web page, and that you know how to use CSS to style a web page. We'll get into all the details in a second, but the requirements for this project are simple. You're going to be styling a page for a pretend client. You need to make sure that you add all of the images that the client requested. You have to make sure that you write style rules for at least 5 different elements on your page. And examples of elements could be the body, paragraphs, headings, lists, and images. So like I said before, everybody is going to be designing for an imaginary client. And previously in class, you were given a project guide that had a little text box on it that looks like this, that discussed what your client's preferences were, especially in terms of colors and fonts that they like. And your job is to take this information and style a web page that already exists so that it meets their specifications or preferences. The great thing about this project is that the HTML code for your client's web page has already been created. It's not your job to create it. All you're really focusing on is adding the images and making the style rules for their page only. So the very first thing that you did in class was you checked out your client's web page, the plain black and white HTML code for their web page, read about their preferences, and then you filled out your project guide according to those preferences. All right, so I have a project guide already completed to use as an example here for this video, and you can find this linked in Canvas under our Unit 2 Lesson 10 Part 1 resources. But if you look here, you can see I have an exemplar project guide that basically outlines who my user is. I have Elena. Elena likes black, gray, and white, accented by navy and maroon for her web page. She would like the fonts to be similar to Arial for the body and Georgia for the headings. So that's a lot of valuable information. And what I did was I went and looked at Arial's web page, and I just started making some decisions about how I was going to style it. So I took those colors she liked and I divided them up, between the background and the colors of all of the different text elements like headings and paragraphs and lists. I put notes in here about what size I wanted the fonts to be, and so on and so forth. All right, so previously in class, you should have already completed this part. You even got to a spot on your project guide where you could sketch out what you wanted the web page to look like. Okay, so this is what we did our first day for the project. And if you do not have your project guide with you, or you want to redo it, you can find that resource again under Unit 2 Lesson 1 Part 1 classwork, where you'll find an exemplar project guide as well as copies of project guides for each of the 3 potential clients you could have had: Pedro, Savannah, or Sophia. Okay, so once my project guide is completed and I know how I want to style my page, I'm ready to move on to code.org. All right, Lesson 10 in code.org is where you actually do your programming and your coding. And when you get there, you can skip over level 1, which is just a review activity, and go straight to level 2. When you get to level 2, they're going to ask you to choose one of the following activities. So this is where you click on a different activity based off of who your client is. If you have Sophia, you click here. If you have Savannah, you click here. And if you have Pedro, you click here. Now I have one entirely different from the other 2. I'm using Elena, which is not one of our options, so I'm going to click on the other option. And as mentioned before, the HTML for my web page already exists. I don't have to worry about creating my paragraphs, headings, lists, all of that. My focus really just is on the style and on inserting those images. All right. Now, they break up this project into multiple steps, and what we're going to do is just follow the instructions on each level to make sure that we have a completed project at the end. So level 2, our first level, says add CSS file. It says the HTML code you wrote for your user in the previous mini project has been carried over to this level, or in other words, when you open for Pedro, Sophia, or Savannah, you're already going to find your web page here. In order to start styling the web page for our user, we need to add the CSS file. So let's look at our do this instructions. It says, number 1, add the CSS file to the project. So if I recall back to previous classes, I know that to add a CSS file, which I do not have here, I need to click the Add CSS button. And there I can see a new file appeared called new.css. Instruction number 2 says rename your CSS file to style.css. So I'm going to go ahead and click this little drop-down menu and select rename. And I'm going to change the name of it to style.css, just like they instructed. Okay? The third instruction for level 2 is to add the link for your CSS file in the head tag. So I can remember from what we've learned before that head is an HTML element. So I want to go back to my HTML file, index.html, and there I can see head is located all the way up here at the top. Okay? So inside the head, it wants me to put a link to my CSS file. I do this with something called a link tag, and we learned about link tags in class. They always follow the same format, and you can copy what I put for my link tag for yours. It looks like this: less than, link, REL equals, style sheet. Okay, so far the code that we've entered into WebLab is telling the computer that we are about to connect a style sheet to this HTML. Okay, after I do that, I'm going to put a space and type href equals, and then in quotes I'm going to type the name of my style sheet, or what the file's called, in this case style.css. At the end of my link tag, I'm going to make sure I remember to put a greater than symbol to close that out. All right. When I'm done, and this is done correctly, I should see no pink text anywhere in my index, which means that there are no errors. If I do see pink text, I want to go back and check this link tag, and again, make sure that I have copied it exactly as you see here. All right, so if you need to pause the screen and double check that, feel free to do that now. Okay, now that we have added our CSS file to the head tag, we're done with level 2, so we can go ahead and click Finish. Click Finish again to move on to level 3. Okay, again, on level 3, you're going to go ahead and select who your client is, Sophia, Pedro, or Savannah. And then we're going to go in and we're going to look at the instructions for level 3. So it says, before you start adding style in the CSS file, let's add the images your user would like on the page. Okay, so it has a spot here for us to download the pictures. Luckily for Sophia, Pedro, and Savannah, all of your pictures or images that the user or client wants should already be loaded here. So you can see Elena has 1, 2, 3, 4 different images that she wants me to incorporate on her page. So it says, do this. Open the folder of images, etc., etc. We're going to skip down to the part that is relevant to us. So it says, add the given images to the user's HTML web pages according to your plan on the project guide. So in looking at each of these pictures, we're going to decide where we want them to go. So however many images that your client has, that's the number of images you're going to add to your web page. I'm going to, one by one, take a look at each of these and decide where I want it to go. So it says this image is a customer feedback image. And it looks like someone is kind of rating how much they like something. So when I think about customer feedback, I think that I want to put that underneath this part right here where it says projects and campaigns, customer feedback initiative at Help Desk Incorporated. All right, so if I want to put that image there, I'm going to go ahead and find this section in my HTML code. Okay, here it is, Customer Feedback Initiative at Help Desk. And I'm going to go directly underneath that list item and go ahead and place my image. Now I put images on my page using what's called an image tag, which we have, again, previously learned about in class. An image tag looks like this. We start off by typing a less than symbol and the letters IMG. This tells the computer we're about to insert an image. Then we put a space, SRC, which stands for source, equal sign, and then the name of our image inside of quotes, okay? So we can either type out the name of our image, customerfeedback.png, or when this pop-up menu appears, we can go ahead and just select it if we don't feel like typing out the whole thing, okay? After we put in the image source, we're gonna hit space again and put ALT equals. And then in quotes, we're going to describe what we see in the image. So if I look at that picture, it looks like it is a customer feedback survey. So I'm going to go ahead and add that as my alt. Customer feedback survey. I'm just describing what I see in the picture. After the end quote, I'm going to put a greater than symbol to close out the tag. Now, when I scroll down, there I'll see that image has been inserted in my web page. Okay? You may find that to begin with, your images are too large. That's okay. We can resize them, but we're not going to be doing that until level 4. Our big priority for level 3 is just to go in and place each of these pictures. So I'm going to do one more to show you as an example, and then we're going to skip ahead to level 4. So the other picture I see here, it says digital marketing. When I scroll it down, it looks kind of like a digital marketing certificate. I'm going to look at my web page and try to figure out where I think that should go. So it looks like both of these, Instagram and Winter Sales Campaign, are both digital marketing campaigns. I'll say especially Instagram is definitely digital. I'm not sure about Fashion Forward Boutique, but I'm going to place this under where it says Instagram Growth Campaign at Trendsetters Agency. So I'm going to go ahead and find in my code that list item, and I can see it here. And right underneath it, I'm just going to go to the next line and I'm going to put in my image tag for digital marketing certificate. So I'll put in IMG space SRC, that's my source, equals digital marketing certificate .png, ALT equals, and I'm going to describe it. It's a marketing certificate. I'm not going to forget to put my greater than symbol at the end. And when I scroll down, I can see my picture has been placed right here. Okay. If you happen to find that you have pink text, double check your code. I've seen a lot of students over the past couple of days forget to put in their greater than symbol at the end. Don't forget that. That's important. They may have misspelled a file name or put in SCR instead of SRC. So just go in and check that image tag. You can pause here and use this as an example and make sure that your image tag follows the exact same code that mine does. Okay, once you have added all of the images for your web page, you are done with level 3. You can click finish. And we can click finish again to move on to level 4. Okay, select your user or client. All right. So now we're going to add style. Okay, so this is going to be the part where we're going to take all of these ideas from our project guide about how we're going to color and size and style everything, and we're actually going to start making those changes to our webpage. Okay, remember that our requirements are that we need to change the way at least 5 different elements look. And elements, the examples of elements are here in our guide. Body is an element, headings are elements, paragraphs are elements, lists are elements, images are elements. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to do it. So previously in level 2, we created our style sheet and linked that to our HTML file. So if we followed those instructions correctly, we are ready to go in and start writing our style rules. I'm going to go ahead and delete the code that's already here when I created it. That's just going to confuse me. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to start off with a blank slate. So the very first thing I know that I want to change about my project is I definitely want to resize these pictures. And you might find that you probably do too. So I'm going to be writing a rule set to do so. So rule sets follow the same basic format. We have a selector, then we have an open curly bracket. On the next line, we have a property, colon, and a value followed by a semicolon. Okay, so we tell the computer what it is that we want to change. That's our selector. That could be a paragraph, an image, a heading. Then we tell the computer what it is about that element specifically we want to change. For example, the color or the size. And finally, we tell it what we want to change it to, a value. And that could be the name of a color. It could be a number of pixels if we're talking about size. It could be lots of different things. Okay, so we're going to follow this general format to write each of our rule sets. And I'm just going to keep this here on the screen to remind us how they should be structured. So the first thing I want to change is the size of my images. So I'm going to use the code I use in my tag to identify an image, IMG, as my selector, because that is what I want to change. I'm then going to put my opening curly bracket. The computer will automatically create the closing bracket, and I'm just going to hit enter to create a space between the two. Okay. If I want to change the size of my image, I'm going to do this by setting the width property to a certain number of pixels. Okay. For example, 300 pixels is usually a good place to start on a standard web page. Okay. Note that after that property width, I put a colon, and after the value 300 px or 300 pixels, I put a semicolon. All of these symbols that you see in addition to the typed text is very important in HTML. If anything is missing or done incorrectly, there is a very good chance the computer is not going to understand what you're trying to do, and you're going to see pink text as an error. Okay, so once I complete that rule set, I'm going to scroll down and see how it has impacted my web page. You can see that those pictures have been resized to now have a width of 300 pixels. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead, now that I have those resizes, I'm going to go ahead and look at my project guide to see what I want to style. So it says here in my plan that because Elena likes black, gray, white, I decided to make the background color on her web page light gray. So I'm going to write a rule set to do that. So I want to change the background color. This means that I want to make a change that impacts the entire web page. When I'm doing that, the selector that I want to choose is going to be body. That's because our body tag, as you can see here in our HTML, includes all of our code. All of our headings, all of our lists, all of our paragraphs, all of our images, all of it is included inside the body. So I'm going to use body as my selector, opening curly bracket, and the property I'm going to be changing is background color. Okay. Oops, sorry, I typed that wrong. Background color. All right, and now I get to pick the color I want. I said light gray, so I'm going to type light gray, and then I'm going to put a semicolon. Okay, so you can see the background of my web page has now turned to light gray. If, for example, I didn't know the name of the color, I could click on any color and pull up this spectrum, and I can just click and drag my mouse to select different shades. right? So I was pretty happy with the color that was picked. I'm going to keep it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this with light gray. And I'm going to move on to my next idea. So it also says here on my project guide that I want to put a black border around my page, okay, around the body style. So I'm going to go ahead and add an additional rule to set my border style. And I have lots of options here I can select from. I'm going to do solid and then put my semicolon. Okay, so you can see that puts a black border around the outside of my page. All right, let me go back to my project guide here. Up next, headings. So it looks like I want my headings to all be white in color. I have some font size notes here. So one will be 50 pixels. I'm assuming that's my H1. And then my 30 pixels will be my H2 headings or H3 headings. And I have some more stuff here. So I'm going to start off with the color and the font. And if I go and look at my index, I can see I have both H1 headings here, so I'll style those. And I have H3 headings. Those are the smaller ones right there. I'll style those as well. So I'll start off with my H1, using H1 as my selector or the thing that I want to change. Color is a property I want to change. White is what I want to change it to. And I'm going to do the same thing for my H3 headings. Again, I'm writing a new rule set, H3, curly bracket, color, colon, white, semicolon. All right. All right, I also put some information in there about font size. Okay, font size, so 50 px for my H1 headings and 30 px for my H2. I'm going to go in and add those to my already existing rule sets. Font size. Again, we said H1 was going to be 50 pixels. And the other was going to be 30 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and click refresh and save. Now I can see that that text has gotten a little bit bigger. Okay. Again, going back to my project guide, it says, okay, that I'm going to put some background color, navy and maroon on each of my headings. So I guess I'll start off with my H1 headings. I'm going to put a background color on those. Navy. And maroon, Elena's favorite colors. All right, when I click refresh and save, now those headings have background colors on them. So it's starting to look really nice. Okay. Now for my paragraphs, the color is going to be black. The font size is going to be 15 pixels. And let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to go back to my project. All right, I'm going to start a new rule set because I do not have one for my paragraphs yet. So I'm going to put P for my selector, curly bracket, color, black, font size, 15 pixels. All right, great. Let's move on to our list style. Again, our lists are also going to be black. And we're going to make them 15 pixels as well so that they match. All right, so if I look at my code, I have to see what kind of lists I have. It looks like I have both unordered lists and ordered lists. So I'm going to style both of them so that they meet those requirements. So I'll start off with unordered list, UL is my selector, color, black, font size, 15 pixels. Same thing with my ordered lists or OLs. Color, black, font size, 15 pixels. All right, so whenever I refresh and save, now I can see all the text is the same size and it looks nice and uniform. Okay, and then last but not least, it talks about images style. So you can see things here like size and then some optional styling like putting a border around it with border style, border color, border radius, and possibly even a float property. I said I'm going to float mine to the right. So let's go ahead and start off with the size. So we already reset the size of our images to 300 pixels. And I'm going to do some of these optional things. I'm going to put a double navy border that has a border radius of 45 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to be using each of these as properties and using these as my values. So now I'm going to go back to my project and I'm going to go back up to the image rule set that I already created when I changed the size. And I'm going to start adding some of those properties and values. So border style, I said on my sheet I was going to make it double. All right, and I was going to make the color navy. And I said I was going to make the border radius 45 pixels. All right. So now whenever I refresh, I'm going to scroll down and take a look at my pictures and see how that has changed them. All right, so you guys can see here, I've got that double border around my images in a navy color, and I've used border radius edges of my picture or my image so that it's not like 90-degree angle. This looks nice, okay? So that is basically it. Remember, the requirements are I should have all of my images added and that I should have changed the appearance of at least 5 different elements. So if you can see here, I've changed the appearance of my images, of my body, of my H1 headings, my H3 headings, my paragraphs, my unordered list, my ordered list. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things I've changed the appearance of, which exceeds that minimum requirement of 5, okay? So it looks like I'm done. Now, in order to turn this project in, my first inclination might be to go up here to the top and copy this link to turn in on Canvas, but that is not what you do. In order to turn this assignment in on Canvas, I'm actually going to go to the share button, okay? The share button. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. When I click on that share button, there will be a purple button that I can click on to copy a link to my project, and all I have to do is click on that one time, and it will automatically be copied to my clipboard. Then I can take that link over to the assignment in Canvas. And the assignment you're going to be looking for is Unit 2, Lesson 10, Part 2. Okay. All right, so you're looking for, again, Unit 2, Lesson 10, Part 2. And when you click on this assignment, you can go ahead and paste that link in and submit it and turn it in, and you're done. If you have any questions about anything you just saw, you need extra support, extra help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email at kadelp@cmitsouth.org. And let me know if you have any questions.